Okay, let's start. Imagine we're back in the early 20th century, a time of soot covered cities, child labor, political machines, and the firm belief that science plus government could fix literally everything. Today's lecture is on the origins of the progressive movement, why it emerged, what it believed, how it departed sharply from the founding generation, and, because I'm not paid to lie to you, the darker consequences of progressive reform: prohibition, eugenics, and an enduring faith in social control. Progressivism did not come out of nowhere. It arose as a reaction to the chaos of industrial America between roughly 1890 and 1920. By the turn of the 20th century, the United States had rapid industrialization, massive immigration, exploding cities, corporate consolidation, political corruption, stark wealth inequality. In other words, the country was rich, powerful, and deeply uncomfortable with itself. Factories ran 6 days a week. Children worked in mines. Tenement housing made fire hazards look cozy. Political machines like Tammany Hall treated democracy as a vending machine. Insert votes, receive favors. To be fair, many of the progressives identified real problems. Corruption was real. Urban poverty was real. Unsafe food and medicine were very real. Read The Jungle if you enjoy nausea as a learning tool. The progressive movement emerged from middle-class reformers, journalists, academics, clergy, and professionals who believed something must be done, and we are the people smart enough to do it. That belief is the beating heart of progressivism. At its core, progressivism was not just a list of reforms, it was an ideology, a new way of thinking about government, society, and human nature. Progressives believed that modern problems required modern solutions, and those solutions should be designed by experts, bureaucrats, social scientists, trained administrators. Politics, they argued, was too important to be left to voters. Woodrow Wilson, yes, that Woodrow Wilson, put it bluntly: the old system of checks and balances is no longer adequate for modern government. Now, if you just felt James Madison roll over in his grave, congratulations, you're paying attention. Unlike the founders, who saw government primarily as a necessary evil, progressives saw it as a positive good, a moral force capable of shaping behavior. Government wasn't just there to protect rights, it was there to improve citizens, regulate habits, correct social outcomes, engineer fairness. This led to reforms like income tax through the 16th Amendment, direct election of senators through the 17th Amendment, expanded regulatory agencies, labor laws, consumer protections. Some of these reforms were genuinely popular and some were genuinely effective, but they all shared one assumption: centralized power is safer in enlightened hands. Now let's pause and do something radical. Compare progressives to the founding generation, the founders' worldview. The founders believed human nature is flawed, power corrupts, government must be limited, liberty is fragile, rights come from nature and God, not the state. James Madison warned in Federalist 51. If men were angels, no government would be necessary. The founders designed a system to restrain government, not empower it. Checks and balances were not inefficiencies, they were safeguards. Progressives rejected this pessimism about power. They argued human behavior can be improved, society can be perfected, experts can manage outcomes. Democracy should be refined. Progressives disliked the Constitution not because it failed, but because it worked too well at limiting power. Wilson again: the Constitution was made for a different age. Translation: the dead white guys didn't anticipate us. Instead of natural rights, progressives emphasized historical rights, rights that evolve as society evolves, interpreted and distributed by the state. That is a foundational shift, not a minor tweak. One reason progressivism succeeded was storytelling. Journalists known as muckrakers exposed corruption and abuse. Upton Sinclair, Ida Tarbell, Lincoln Steffens. They were effective, emotional, and often sincere. They believed sunlight was the best disinfectant, and often they were right. But moral urgency can be dangerous when paired with political power. When reform becomes righteousness, compromise becomes heresy. And this brings us to the part of the lecture where things get uncomfortable. Progressivism did not just regulate railroads and clean up meatpacking. It also produced some of the most coercive and illiberal policies in American history. Let's talk about three. Progressives believed that social problems could be solved by removing bad behavior through law. Alcohol, they argued, caused poverty, domestic violence, crime, immorality. Their solution? Ban it nationally. The 18th Amendment, 1919, was progressive reform in its purest form. Moral certainty, national enforcement, expert planning, total disregard for human behavior. The result? Organized crime, widespread corruption, black markets, massive disrespect for the law. H.L. Mencken, never missing a chance to mock reformers, wrote, "Prohibition makes nothing illegal except being caught. The policy failed so spectacularly it required another constitutional amendment to undo it. That's not reform. That's a constitutional oops." Now we arrive at the darkest chapter. Many progressives believed poverty, crime, and degeneracy were biological problems, not moral or economic ones. Their solution? Eugenics, the idea that society should encourage the reproduction of the fit and discourage or prevent the reproduction of the unfit. This was not fringe thinking. It was taught at universities, supported by reformers, backed by scientists, upheld by courts. In Buck versus Bell, 1927, the Supreme Court upheld forced sterilization. Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes wrote, "3 generations of imbeciles are enough." That is not a villain in a dystopian novel. That is a sitting Supreme Court justice. By mid-century, over 60,000 Americans were forcibly sterilized, often the poor, the disabled, minorities, and the socially marginal. This happened in the name of progress. Progressives believed democracy needed supervision. They created regulatory agencies, licensing boards, bureaucracies, expert commissions. Many of these still exist today. The goal was efficiency and fairness, but the result was often distance from accountability. Decisions moved away from voters, away from legislatures, toward permanent administrators. The founders feared this kind of power concentration. Progressives embraced it. As one progressive reformer put it, "The people are often wrong." Now, that may be true, but it raises an obvious question. Who decides when they are wrong, and who watches the deciders? So how should we judge the progressive movement? Honestly, and historians should always aim for honesty, it was a mixed bag. Progressives identified real problems, improved public health, reduced corruption, but they also undermined constitutional limits, rejected natural rights, justified coercion, trusted power too much, confused expertise with wisdom. They believed history had a direction and they were steering it. The founders, by contrast, believed liberty survives only when power is restrained, ambition checks ambition, and no group, however educated, gets to redesign humanity. Or, as Ronald Reagan later quipped, channeling Madison more than Wilson, "The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, 'I'm from the government and I'm here to help.'" Now, after prohibition, eugenics, and social engineering, you can see why some Americans became skeptical. Progressivism reminds us of an enduring truth of American history. Good intentions do not guarantee good outcomes. Reform without humility becomes control. Power without limits becomes abuse. And progress without a firm anchor in liberty can go somewhere very dark, very quickly. All right, that's enough enlightenment for one lecture. Thank you.